Mi corazón desniega, me quema el corazón. Ella es para mí. Aloha. Ella es la mujer de mis sueños. Si tú la miras te darás cuenta. Lo que quiero decirte, ella es así tu ilusión. ¿Qué puedo hacer? ¿Qué puedo hacer para hacerla?
Aloha! 40 years ago, and I'm not sure, I think it was in this building, but if it wasn't, it was close by. A man who was a Catholic, who was then governor of the state of Hawaii, signed the first law in the nation making safe and legal abortion possible for young women like myself here in the islands. His name was John A. Burns. It's a very proud moment for our state. We were literally the only place in the country where women could come and not have to risk their lives because they were carrying a pregnancy that they absolutely knew they couldn't carry to term and do right by. And I think we need to start talking again about abortion. Let's stop talking about choice and remember that what we really are talking about is our bodies and ourselves, our history and our future. And this is a very important battle that we can't get around on. A couple of years later, Hawaii would become the very first state in the nation, the very first, to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, guaranteeing gender equality for all of us in the state of Hawaii. That was another proud moment when the law was passed by the Senate in 1972. Hawaii stayed in the House and in the Senate so that they could ratify it that very day. Then, many of you know that the Equal Rights Amendment, the struggle stalled, and we were not able to get sufficient numbers of people to support that extremely important piece of legislation that all it does is guarantee equality for women. It was introduced after we got the right to vote, for heaven's sakes. But somebody else was on the job, and her name was Patsy T. Mink. She had the misfortune of being born a girl. The 20 medical schools that she applied to turned her down. The only law school that accepted her because they thought Hawaii was a foreign country. University of Chicago, right on, boys. And they were all boys. She graduated as the only woman in her class. And when she went to Congress, she vowed that young women would never have to face that discrimination again. And it is because of Patsy Takemoto Mink that we have whatever gender equality we have in this country. Let me read the statistics now with Title IX. 47% of admissions to medical school are women. 48% of admissions to law school are women. She changed the world, and she came from here. So let's not forget, it's an extraordinary victory for women and for our country. You understand that in the last year, over 400 Republican bills have been introduced to restrict women's reproductive rights. And they're not finished. They also want to recriminalize contraception. And in Wisconsin recently, the state legislature just withdrew women's protection for suing for discrimination on the basis of gender in the workplace. So understand what's at stake here. This is a full assault on women. So as the Center for Women in Politics has suggested, and we have some equal representations here, don't get mad, get elected. Thank you. Thanks.
Hi, it's Hannah Miyamoto, one of the co-organizers of this rally. I just want to remind you that thank you for coming out, but remember there's no point in you coming out here unless we have your names and the emails, because we need to get organized. We all know the old slogan, don't agonize, organize, right? So there's a young man, he's a volunteer for Planned Parenthood, he's in a green shirt, you'll recognize some of the Planned Parenthood stickers. Make sure, please, that when he comes along, that you give us your name and your email address or some other way to reach you. Mahalo, we need to stay strong. No pasa nada.
Thanks, Hannah. Chris? Next, I'd like to introduce Representative, former Representative Ed Case, U.S. Senator.
Aloha.
Aloha!
92 years ago, 92 years ago,
Yeah, that's right.
this month, my father, Jim Case, was born in Lake Hawaii. It was a great day and a great year for my grandmother when her firstborn came, but she could not vote. She could not vote in 1920, just 92 years ago, because our Constitution did not allow her to vote, because women in this country did not have suffrage in 1920, just 1920. And of course it came just that year, and in the next election, she could vote. In 1928, my mother was born in Jefferson City, Missouri. In 1928, in this country, there was no safety net. And because there was no safety net, no Social Security, no Medicare, millions and millions and millions of Americans lived in poverty and destitution, if not died, because our government was not taking care of them. We were not taking care of them, and that burden fell disproportionately on women. Widows and elderly women took the brunt of the pre-Social Security lapse in our country. In 1946, my mother enrolled at Wellesley College in Massachusetts, a generation before Hillary Clinton. In Wellesley College in 1946, no graduate of one of the best colleges in the country could enroll at Harvard Law School or any other law school for that matter.
Wow.
No business in Massachusetts or New York or Wall Street would hire a woman graduate of Wellesley College in 1946 and 1950. In 1970, I graduated from high school just here and went off to college myself in Massachusetts. And in the great state of Massachusetts, one of the most progressive states in our country today, a woman did not have a right of choice. It was against the law of Massachusetts for any woman at any age to terminate a pregnancy at her choice at any stage of that pregnancy in 1970 in Massachusetts. In 1970, when my wife Audrey, who's here with me today, graduated and went off to college at San Francisco State University, as Mita has said earlier, it was not equal funding for women. There was no sports. And by the way, Title IX is not just sports, it's across the board. It is a matter of basic equality. That didn't exist in 1970. It took the work of Patsy Mink just a few years later to strike down that particular aspect of discrimination in our country. And so you see, we have all lived in one way or another, only in one or two generations, with discrimination across the board against women, with a lack of equality. Fast forward to today, where our daughter has just graduated from college and graduate school. Today, she can aspire to go to law school or medical school. She can aspire to any job that she wants to get in this country, up to and including president. She can aspire and choose the contraceptive decisions that she wants for herself, without fear of the government telling her what she can and cannot do. All of these things have occurred in just the space of a few generations. And for this, we are thankful to the pioneers that came before us, who fought the fights, bled the blood, and were jailed for it. We thank them as we sit here today. And yet, as all of the speakers prior to me have observed, there is so much more to go. Today in our country, women do not have a constitutional right of non-discrimination under our Constitution, and that must change, as Esther has said. And so as we look out over the course of our country today, we see so much that's left to be done in our country and in our world. Because as far as our country has come, we look at a world in which women live in destitution and poverty and discrimination, abused, subjugated, all around this world. And this has to be part of our obligation, our kuleana, our responsibility to take the advances of our country out there into the rest of the world and find for the rest of the world what we have found for ourselves over the last few generations. These would be steep hills to climb, even in the best of times, because after all, look at how much effort it took to get to this point, and look at how much effort, in all honesty, it's going to take for us to come together to get through the final miles to full equal opportunity, full equal pay, full equal status across the board. Why do they want to unwind things that have worked so well? Things that have brought so many people forward, and I'm not just talking about women, because discrimination against women is discrimination against everybody. A civil right is a civil right. And as we defend women's civil rights, as we defend gay civil rights, as we defend the civil rights of ethnic minorities, we defend all of our civil rights, and this is what this fight is about. It's not just about women, it's about our country. It's about where we want to go. Why would they do this? Well, we have to realize that there is in our country today an element of folks that think they know what their beliefs are, and it's not good enough for their beliefs to be their beliefs. They want their beliefs to be my beliefs. Now, I have no problem in our country with their beliefs being their beliefs, but go practice your own beliefs. Let me practice my beliefs. It's like they said a long time in one of those great court decisions. I can't describe it, but I know it when I see it. And this is discrimination today. This is discrimination. And it has to stop. And I have to stop too. Because I've gotten a little worked up here. I'm mad about the situation in our country today. I'm mad. I'm upset. It offends my sense of fairness. It offends the upbringing that I was benefited from a great mother and a great father who believed in these things, and you all did too. It offends me that we have to deal with this today, but we do. There's no way to describe it other than as a war. This isn't a matter of sitting down and working it out across across this divide or that. They want their beliefs to be our beliefs. They want their way to be our way, and we want freedom. And we look at this incredible acceleration over the last generations. This incredible acceleration, I'm convinced that if we can beat back this attack right now, in the voting booth, as everybody has said, in the halls of government where it has to be beaten back, those are where the decisions are going to be made. I'm convinced that we will see an incredible acceleration in these rights. I'm convinced that we will see together an incredible development that will bring us to where we want to be inside of the next generation, if not the next half a generation. So let's go out and fight for it. Let's go out and fight in this election. Yes, of course, you all have choices in this election, but this is something that brings us together. Look at us. Look at us. My opponents, people are here. We have congressional candidates here. We all believe in the same thing. Let's go out and join forces on this great fight and finish the job. Thank you very much.
I am Andre Anderson. I am the CEO for Planned Parenthood for Hawaii. I'm extremely lucky to not only live in Hawaii, but work in my dream job, where I get to be the head of an organization that does amazing work. Unfortunately, it's been a really crappy year and a half, right, since the last round of people were elected federally, nationally, because of awful laws that were passed. In the past 18 months, we have had a national legislature that has passed 135 laws that restrict access, eliminate access, and also defund a lot of healthcare facilities, Planned Parenthood being some of them. So, women's healthcare cannot be used as a bargaining chip at the legislative and electoral level. It can no longer be seen as something that is an option. Women's healthcare is a vital part of our humanity. So let's make sure that we don't let them forget that. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Representative Chris Lee from District 51.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm here today because there's an important message that has to be told. I'm here today because 70% of the men in this building, 70% of employees, elected officials, are men. And sometimes it takes a guy to tell a bunch of other stubborn guys the way things are, and sometimes when they're wrong, and what needs to happen. And that's why I've kind of taken up this issue, a number of these issues, and that's why I'm here today. Across the rest of the nation, we have seen attacks on women's rights from across the spectrum. Here we have an uphill challenge just the same. 1 in 7 women in the state, 1 in 7, I'm looking out across the crowd and I can count more than a dozen of you who this would apply to today, statistically. 1 in 7 will be victims of sexual assault in their lifetime. 25,000 of them across the nation will become pregnant as a result of this. We've been trying to pass laws here locally that will allow those victims the opportunity to seek emergency contraception in their emergency rooms and not be denied that right. We are not there yet, but fortunately it's a wildly popular issue across any poll you look at, across any state. The only reason that's the case is because 70% of the candidates running for office are men. You put your name in the hat, and all of a sudden that begins to change. Women outvote men in every election, and we should not take that for granted. We cannot allow these attacks to continue. We must take a stand here. It's an election year. And just as Mina had said earlier, this is a chance for people to get involved. Our families are our bread and butter. Attacks on women's rights are attacks on our families. They're attacks on our mothers, our daughters, our sisters. They're attacks on us. And if people are going to step forward and talk about family values and talk about putting families first, they can do something by making this their issue and starting right here. So thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay. Esther's next. Esther Kiaina. Yeah, girl. The other day, Esther posted on Facebook, "Imua Wahine," and I stole it. And I put it everywhere, so I'm all over that.
We are under siege.
You're here.
It is hard to watch the news anymore without hearing about the attack on women's reproductive rights. From our nation's capital and Republican presidential candidates to governors and state legislatures in various parts of the country, I have never seen such broad-based and systematic attack on women's rights in my lifetime. We are here today to send a message to all policymakers at all levels of government that we are united and we will not tolerate this assault on women. For starters, it is important that we elect a U.S. president that supports a woman's right to choose. Given the continuing legal challenges to Roe v. Wade and the importance of appointees to our federal court system, including the U.S. Supreme Court, and it is clear to me that the only individual that meets that test is President Barack Obama.
Yeah!
More than just electing pro-choice women to office, however, it is equally important that women galvanize in holding all elected Hawaii officials accountable on a woman's right to choose, regardless of their gender, starting with the 2012 elections. Women can also support Planned Parenthood and other pro-choice organizations, given the attacks by Republicans on government funding for such organizations. I also believe that while we are fighting for our reproductive rights, it is the right time to strongly revisit our fight for the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Now is the time for women across the country to speak out to get the ERA enacted into law again and strategize how to get the support for ratification by the necessary number of states. Lastly, we must also do more to fight and protect women from domestic and sexual violence, including in our armed services. In summary, women in Hawaii must be vigilant, take control, and galvanize other women to get involved against the attack on women's reproductive rights and other important issues across the country. If ever there was a time to kokua or help, it is now. And the best place to start holding our own political leaders accountable in Hawaii is 2012. I pledge to you today that should you elect me to Congress, I will be one of your strongest advocates in the war against women in our nation's capital. Mahalo nui loa for this opportunity to speak to all of you today.
Aloha.
Aloha, Amy!
My name is Amy Arbayani, and I'm not a candidate for any office, but I'm so happy that we do have wonderful strong, independent candidates, and I'd like to recognize all our candidates, particularly our 2 women candidates who are running for office, because they are going to take the fight to where it is and really represent the issues we all care about. And we're all here today because this is an attack on women. This is a war on women, and I believe that a young person like Tulsi, who has actually fought in the war, will be a woman warrior for us. And I believe that we can all together make sure that the issues that we're talking about today, pay equity, particularly working women and working families, have to be supported. We actually have wonderful choices among our candidates. So thank you very much for allowing Tulsi's representative to speak today. Thank you.
We have Leslie here from Local 5.
Yeah, Local 5.
Aloha!
Aloha!
My name is Leslie Kumia, and I'm proud to be a woman.
Woo!
I was born and raised here on the island of Oahu. I was raised by parents that believed we are all created equal. I am an employee, but most importantly, I am a union member of Unite Here Local 5. Our union fights every day for women's rights. We fought and won harassment cases that was happening on the Halekoa property. But we fight every day for all workers, be it men and women, that are being all abused at the workplace. Union women are leaders at the workplace, in our community, and are the backbones in our household. We, Unite Here Local 5, will continue to fight every day until every woman is treated equal. And we ask all of you to join us in this fight until we, as women, are all created equal. Thank you and mahalo.
Mahalo.
I am J.D. Nielsen. I'm chair of the Passing Teammate Political Action Committee. We support pro-choice Democratic women for the state legislature. And some of you may know that the founding chair of the Passing Teammate PAC is Nancy Hirono. And I am delighted to read her statement to you today. Aloha to everyone here and mahalo for turning out today. I would love to be here in person, but I am with all of you in spirit, a spirit of determination. The stakes have never been higher this year. To stand strong for women, to stand with our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, and our friends, and to remember that an assault on the right and well-being of women also affects the men in our lives, husbands and sons, fathers and brothers, so many of whom also stand with us today. If Congress were focused on jobs, it would not be attacking Title X and organizations like Planned Parenthood. I learned from my friend and mentor, Patsy Teammate, and my own mother, to never give up and to keep fighting for what is right. Together, we will all keep fighting for what is right. Aloha, Nancy Hirono.
Okay, you guys, I saved the best for last. Liz Reese is going to speak, and before she does, I'd like to thank all of you once again for coming, because democracy doesn't work without participation. So mahalo. I'm going to turn it over to Liz. We'll go sign wave after. Oh, and we'll have music by Rolando Sanchez.
Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Reese. I'm with World Can't Wait. When it comes to access to abortion and birth control, many women are in a state of shock as to how things got this bad. In order to fight this very vicious and very real war on women, we have to ask ourselves, how the hell did we get here? When Bill Clinton became president, the pro-choice movement mistakenly breathed a sigh of relief and believed that the government would protect a woman's right to choose. Instead of protesting in the streets, most women's groups relied solely on legislative and electoral politics. In 1992, Clinton made his famous speech stating that abortion should be legal but rare. And the pro-choice movement wrongly accepted this framework and even embraced legal but rare as its new mantra. It is that framework which helped pave the way over the past 20 years for all of the restrictions and attacks on abortion rights that we see today. Think about the term legal but rare. By saying it should be rare, we are basically going along with the idea that there's something morally wrong with having an abortion, like it's some kind of necessary evil. The pro-choice movement needs to take back the term morality when it comes to abortion rights. For over 20 years, we've been acting like the anti-abortion movement has a monopoly on what is moral. Well, I'm going to tell you, we are the ones that have morality on our side. Denying women access to abortion and birth control is immoral. Giving women complete reproductive freedom is not only the right thing to do, it's the moral thing to do. And just why the hell should it be rare? When a woman makes a conscious decision to control her own body and decide for herself when and if to have children, this is a good thing. Women empowering themselves and deciding their own destiny should never be rare. Well, that led to Obama, our so-called pro-choice president, who told us we needed to seek common ground and have compromise with right-wing theocrats and fascists. This so-called common ground and compromise has done nothing but chip away at a woman's fundamental right to choose, and has even led to a climate where women are degraded and humiliated for seeking abortions or even birth control. A climate where women who dare to speak out are labeled as sluts and whores in the national media. A climate where 2011 saw the largest spate of legal restrictions on abortion since Roe v. Wade in 1973. A climate where in 2012 we are even reduced to fighting for birth control. And even then, women's groups make the argument that many women take birth control for health reasons, and not focusing on the primary fact that most women take birth control because they have sex and they don't want to be pregnant. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's be very clear. There is no common ground when it comes to abortion rights and access to birth control. You either stand for women's liberation or you stand for oppressing women. Pick a side, because there is no middle. So, where do we go from here? Well, we go to the streets. We need a mass movement on the streets demanding abortion on demand and without apology. We have created a situation where having an abortion is a dirty little secret. We must change the perception that women should feel guilty or shameful about having an abortion. Women don't understand that when abortion was illegal, hospitals were filled with women dying and suffering from botched and illegal abortions. Young women don't hear older women speaking out about their experience. See, event, I think this is a step forward, but I think we have a long way to go. And we can't just look at what's happening in Hawaii. We have to look at the bigger picture. Because unless all